What's up guys, Azura here, and we are back to our regularly scheduled Zero content. And today we will be taking a look at first impressions for set 12. Set 12 gave support for Royals, DI, Kagero, and finally Nubatama. This is Nuba's first wave of support in G, and it was a long anticipated dominate support that everyone was looking forward to. And just from first impressions, I think I can say Dominate has not disappointed us compared to some other decks' first support of G. So yeah, so we took a look at everything, taking a look at all the cards I think are relevant, and we'll start off with Royals. And this time, since it's already been like a week, this time I actually have gotten a chance to play with everything except for DI. Some lists a little more scuffed than others, but I've at least gotten to try the cards. So yeah, so we'll start off with Royals. Royals got the main wave focus here was blasters for Royals, so like Aichi stuff. But Alt Mile did actually get one card that's quite relevant, and we'll go over that first just because it's the most like random thing we got. This grade 1. So this dude so has skill deck. If your Vanguard is an Alt Mile +1 grade, so just like Selim, this card is searchable because it is counted as a grade 2. It has Brave keyword, and so Brave during both GB1 Brave during both turns +2, so 9k booster if you're in Brave is pretty nice, and it has resist. So Alt Mile now has a searchable, unretirable booster. Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. I think this is a very unneeded, a very unnecessary addition to the deck. This deck was already good enough as is. I do not think this deck needed any more support, at least for a while. And they decided to give the deck a searchable resist booster now. So even though this is a blaster focused label support, we got an absolutely borked Alt Mile card. So yeah, so this is very good card, but only being a rare. So yeah. So with that being out of the way, we'll take a look at the actual blaster stuff now. So first off, I think the main thing to look at is Blaster Blade Exceed. So his skill is Van Rear on place. If your Vanguard is a Blaster or a I think Saver, I think was the other one. So yeah, so Blaster or actually no, Blaster. Asking for Blaster or Alfred. If your Vanguard is Blaster or Alfred, CB1 and choose one of your opponent's grade 1 or higher rears and retire it. So CB1 spot removal, pretty good. Can kill anything but starters or triggers for a reason. And then Fan Circle, when your Saver G unit strides on top of it. So Saver being the 2 new strides, and then a very relevant old stride that also has Saver name is the Religious Soul Saver, because that card is your ideal for is a very good first stride for the deck, assuming you can fill the requirements for it. So when your Saver G unit strides on top of it, CB1, choose a card with Blaster from your drop zone and return it back to your deck, and then you can add any one unit with Blaster Blade from your deck to your hand. So pretty good there. You can add copies of him, Stride Fodder. I think that's a play I do a lot with this deck. You can add OG Blaster Blade. Again, very relevant card because he's like the focus of the deck, obviously. So yeah, so recycle Blaster Blade as well as search one from deck and add one to hand. So very good card. This is the thing you need to be on when you're playing this deck. So yeah, so very good card for the deck. Other grade 3 they got, in my opinion, I personally do not play this card, but I can see the reasons why you would want to play this card. At least in my little bit of testing, I think the list I've made is the list I'm playing right now works pretty well, and I don't play him in the deck at all. But his skill is on play you can choose up to 1 grade 2 and up to 1 grade 3 Blaster Blade from drop from the back to bottom of your deck. If you put at least 1, he gets +5, and then if your Vanguard is a Blaster or an Alfred, he gets Intercept. So what he does is actually pretty good. He recycles your Blaster Blades as well as being a grade 3 that has Intercept. So that's actually pretty good. But in my opinion, I think Ganslot is still a better grade 3 for the deck, at least in my opinion. So I wouldn't fault anyone for running this card. I don't think this card is bad by any means, but I personally prefer Ganslot over this card as the second grade 3 in the deck. So yeah, so perfectly serviceable card. I personally just do not choose to play because I value Ganslot a little bit more. So yeah, that's it for the other grade 3. There's this Liu as well. So he's the same guy as the grade 3, but his skills on play, you can choose a grade 2 Blaster Blade and return it to the bottom of your deck. So he recycles grade 2s, and then His other skills, when this unit is boosted by Blaster Friend Barkle or Floral Paladin Flogel. So Barkle being a Balin for Blaster Blade, so I'll just go over this now because this card is very, very good. When Blaster Blade is placed in the same columns unit, if your Vanguard's a Blaster, CC1, so this is the Balin, the Dorant of this deck, very, very important, very, very good. And Flogel is the crit, and despite it being a trigger, I actually think this card is very good. This is a card I'm also playing in my deck. I think this card is a very, very powerful card. Skill is at the end of the battle, your Blaster Blade, specifically Blaster Blade, attacks a Vanguard. You can CB1 return this unit back into your deck, and so you shuffle it and then stand one of your Blaster Blade over here. So you can let your Blaster Blade. So obviously Blaster Blade has retire, so you can. So it doesn't matter if you pop the intercept. Blade can go in, and then you can CB1 put this back to your deck to restand it. So very good. And even better is that this card also has the when damage checked effect. So a damage zone is called damage checked. You can draw one. So when you damage check it, it's a draw. When you drive check, it's crit. So pretty good there with a very, very good secondary effect. So yeah, this is definitely a card that I think is definitely worth including in the deck. So very, very good. This card is needed for this Lu to proc its second effect, which is actually pretty good too. So pretty relevant here. So the Lu's effect is when the attack this unit is boosted by the Barkle or the Flogel as attacking Vanguard. He gets +3, and then the Fallen ability at the end of the battle that used an attack. CB1 put him into Soul to search your deck for a grade 2 Blaster and call it, and then it gets +3. So there's a bunch of cards in this deck that also gives Blaster Blade power. So even though you already boosted the column, the Blaster Blade you call will hit for minimum 16, assuming you're on like the Alfred, for example. Alfred's one of the cards that gives power. So despite you not having a booster for that side, the deck has many ways to pump power to the Blaster Blade. So this actually is a very good attack extension. Obviously, with our 5 don't even need the extra power extension because you can just +3 is enough for it to solo hit. So yeah, so this card is very good. It recycles and it's an attack extender. And because of the fact that I think this Lu is really good, Barkle would have been played regardless of the CC. But because this Flogel has a good second effect and it's needed for its name, this card is also played as well, and it's also very good. So I guess we knocked 3 cards out of that all at once. Next off, the Star Hope Trumpeter, I think is her name. GB1 on play from hand, so it sucks that only from hand, so you can't like call it from deck and also just use her skill. But when she's called from hand, if your Vanguard is a Blaster or an Alfred, CB1 and call anything from your deck. So CB1 tutor anything and give it +3. So you can use this to set up CC with the Barkle. You can use this to call this thing to set for multi-attacks. You can use it to call Blaster Blade, obviously. You can use the call Blaster Blade Spirit to pop, get or retire. So CB1 tutor the entire deck, pretty good to me. So that's the Star Hope. Now we also got a Blaster, a PG specific for Blaster. So this is similar to the Shushu PG, where if your Vanguard isn't a Blaster or an Alfred, it doesn't work. But it's very good. This PG is very good. It's definitely worth playing in the Blaster deck. Its skill is when this card is used as a PG, no other condition, as long as you PG'd with it, at the start of your next turn, Soul Blast 1 to draw 1. So you get to just draw 1 back at the start of your next turn. Very, very good. In like top deck situations, this card will make or break your wins, because in those situations you're like scrounging for playables, scrounging for stride fodder, stuff like that. This card just gets you an extra card after PGing with it, so very, very good. Obviously, if you have multiples, you can proc multiples. So yeah, this card is very, very good. And if you're playing Blasters, I would definitely recommend playing this PG over like a CC PG or something. So yeah, very, very good. The other PG guy is just a CC PG, just alternate art, different unit, but this is the same thing as the one guy in G set 1. And the Wingle Youth, it's pretty good too. At the end of battle, this unit attacked or boosted hits a Van. You check top 7 and add any unit with Blaster Blade from one to your hand, and then he goes to Soul if you found something off the top 7 to add to hand. And then when you're paying the stride cost for a saver, specifically striding for a saver, it counts as +2 grade. So this card can tutor you for any Blaster Blade off the top 7, as well as being stride fodder in hand for your saver stride. So very, very good card. All these cards are like a very like cohesive package you throw together, all to make a very like super easy easy to build deck. So very, very good in my opinion. Very, very very strong package overall. And then finally the GR strides. First we'll go over the Ganslot Peace Saver. So again, Peace Saver name, very relevant. So when this unit attacks, I think it's the attack of Van. If you have a heart with Alfred or Blaster, you CC1. So CC1 is basically your cost. So countercharge 1, draw 1, drive +1, and then you have and then if you have a copy, I think a copy of itself face up in the G zone, you get +1 crit. Let me just make sure. Basically, this card does not get a crit on first stride. Basically, is the whatever condition. I don't remember if you need another. I don't remember if you needed a copy of itself or if you needed just something face up your G zone. So basically, on first stride, it's CC1, drive +1, draw 1, and then it gets +1 crit on second stride onwards. Basically, so pretty good there. And then the skill that everyone's wondering how it will work. How they decide to import this into 0, the resist skill, because in TCG, Peace Saver had a continuous skill that gave all your Blaster Blades resist during your opponent's turn to just stop stuff like the now Griffin, which we do not have to worry about in 0. His skill is when this unit returns to the G zone at the end of your turn, choose one of your units with Blaster Blade in a name, and you give it resist until end of your opponent's turn. So instead of giving all your Blaster Blades resist during your opponent's turn, it gives or during your turn, it gives one of your Blaster Blades resist until the end of your opponent's turn. So one of them gets to keep the resist. So yeah, pretty good there. Oh, it's okay. So it only needs something based on the G zone. So first try no crit, second try onwards it would get crit. So yeah, it's pretty good. Very cost efficient card. Very good in matchups where the resist is important. So yeah, very good card. This is sometimes your first try, but like I said earlier, I think Religious Soul Saver is your best first try if you can get the 2 blasters in name. So 2 blaster rides. So yeah, Peace Saver, very good card. And then the Alfred Holy Saver, I think is his name. So GB2 once per turn. If you have a Blaster or Alfred Heart, G Persona Flip and discard 1 card to choose one of your Blaster Blades, and you give it Twin Drive. So your Blaster Blade now performs drive checks on rears, and then yeah, so you give it Twin Drive, and then because of how the 0 mechanic works, you don't add a card, so you drive check your hand. When your Blaster Blade attacks, it just draws 2 to like make up for the missing cards from the drive checks. So basically, how you look at it is you pay cost, you choose a Blaster Blade, and then you give it the ability to drive check on rear, and then when it attacks, you draw 2. And then this part just here with the little crit thing just says that if you drive check a crit, the crit goes to the Blaster Blade. So there's that. And then GB3, all your Blaster Blades get +5. This skill is actually very good because it turns all your Blaster Blades into solo attackers. A very common line of play you make with this deck is if you're going for this and you get Blaster Blade, you pop a rear, you have like a Flogo behind the van, you go like rear to rear, the other rear to rear. Blaster Blade goes unboosted because of the fact that it is 14 from the Alfred. You do your drive checks, and then the Flogo will go back and stand the Blaster Blade. 9 plus 7 plus 5 is 21. So you hit over defensive 2. So that's a very easy 2 checks from 4. So yeah, pretty good, very good here. And oh yeah, I forgot to mention is that only for the first battle will you do this effect. So even if you restand the Blaster Blade, it will not draw you another 2, nor will it drive check again. It will only on the first time it swings will you drive check and when you draw cards. So Alfred, honestly, he's not like the most impressive thing or anything, but he's very cost efficient. Ditch 1 to draw 2 basically, and more chances to check heals, more chances to check draws. Make sure Blaster Blade solo attackers. Just a overall very solid card. Doesn't cost CB either, so that's also a good point to this card. So yeah, overall my thoughts on Blasters. It's a very aggressive deck playstyle wise, but I think this deck is very solid. I think it's a very playable deck out of the set. I think that's the most important thing to note here is that this deck is very playable out of just this one set, which I think is pretty good for like new players specifically, but even for someone like me who's been playing the game since release, I think this deck is very fun and pretty easy to build too, because you don't need too many of the GRs. I think 2 of each GRs from this set for this deck specifically is very passable. I think optimally you want 3 Gants, just because you have like one extra filler open space that Gantz fills in the best in my opinion, but you definitely don't need more than 2 Alfreds in my opinion, and I think 2 to 3 Gants is enough. And honestly speaking, with everything else in the set, there's a pretty cheap deck to play, and it's pretty okay as well in my opinion. Very aggro, has pretty good combo plays, and then obviously you can make use of all the generic Royal Paladin strides. So overall, it gets my seal of approval. I think this deck is very fun. I love this deck, and I think it's pretty solid too. So yeah, and my thoughts on Blasters. Next up we got Kagero. Right, so in the middle of that, I guess Zero decided it was time to go into maintenance. So I guess we'll continue the set review on the actual card list. So if you're ever wondering where I'm looking up the translations on these cards, let's just click on Ziegenberg because it's probably how I'm gonna look at first. You just click on the card, right click the page, not block element, translate, bam, translation, and you just have to interpret the broken English here. So yeah, so since we're already here, we will take a look at Kagero. Kagero, again, like I said, before the game decided going to maintenance, they got a bunch of Steel Dragon support, and then a few generic Blaze cards. The main GR being the Flare Arm Ziegenberg, and so it has Blaze, and then once returned, Soul Blast 1, G Persona Blast, so G Flip to retire 1 points rear, so CB List Retire, very nice here. And then GB3, once returned at the end of battle that unit attacked, if you are in Blaze, you can CB1 and then discard the same number of cards as the number of rears your opponent has on their board to restand this unit, draw 1, and then I guess drive -2. So basically, the first skill is not tied to GB or anything. You can short stride this and Soul Blast 1 if you want to retire 1. I wouldn't say that comes up very often at all whatsoever, but it's there. This card is very nice because Blade Master will retire 1 front row, he retires the other front row is empty now, you can go face 4 times. And then the restand part of this card, how this works basically is, if your opponent has an empty board, you just CB1 and ditch 0 to restand, draw 1, so that'd be +1. If they have 1, you discard 1, if they have 2, you discard 2. If they have 3, you discard 3, and there's no way, unless you're like running this into a rear with full board, you're not going to ever discard more than like, you were discarding 3 or 4, realistically speaking. So yeah, restand skill, very nice. It's not something that you can do against every matchup. I think this card is like a huge brick in the G zone against something like Neo Nectar because resist everywhere. So yeah, so realistically with this card, you never want to be paying more than I think the max you would ever want to ditch this card is 2. I think if you have to ditch 3 to pay its restand cost, you shouldn't be going into this, realistically speaking. And ditching 1, fine, because you just ditch 1 to draw 1 back. And obviously, ideal situation you ditch 0, so you have to clear out the entire board for going for this. But that doesn't happen very, very often, nor is it realistic to expect that to go off every game. So just gotta keep that in mind when you're going to go into this card. But very good card. Initially, I wasn't very didn't really have any high expectations. I didn't think this card was very good initially because I'm like, oh yeah, against the decks that just have a bunch of anti-retire or resist, this card is just not that good. But after actually playing with it, not every deck has access to this. Most decks at most have access to their 1 anti-retire starter, and at some point they probably will use it to get off the board, so you just can't clear everything. But at worst, that just means you ditch 1 to restand, which is not the worst thing in the world. So overall, I still think this card is very good. I think this card's like at least a 2-up in your G zone and Blade Master now. So anywhere from 2 to 4, depending on how you feel. Right now I'm at 3, so I don't have a 4th one yet. But once I get it, I do actually want to try playing with 4 in the G zone. So I think this card is actually very, very good. So that's Ziegenberg. And another card that's very, very good is the new Blade Master, the Blade Master Cohen. So he has Blaze, and then at the end of your turn, so GB2, but again, that's irrelevant because every Kagero stride you ever going to, minus Harmonics, if you ever need to go into that, first stride. Every Kagero stride, Titan, Mustafa, which you shouldn't be going to anymore, Ziegenberg, if you want to go into that first stride, Vortex Desire, all those cards flip, so you will always be on GB2. So this skill will basically always be live. Soon you can meet the other condition, which is at the end of your turn, if your opponent has no rear guard, so a full empty board, you can return 1 grade 3 Flame Dragon with the Blaze ability from drop from drop to hand. So in matchups where you can actually keep your opponent's board clear, this card will recur Stride Fodder for you every single turn, which I think is absolutely amazing. In any matchup where you can actually use this skill every turn or close to every single turn, you are generating so much advantage in this deck now with this GB2. So very, very, the skills in the matchups where this skill can actually be used consistently, this skill is so good for this deck. And then his other skill is on stride, CB1, retire one of your opponent's rears, and then so CB1 to retire, and then you can give one of your Flame Dragons +3, I think, something like that. So yeah, this thing can give like 3k to us. The steel basically it's old Blade Master Shrine, but you can give like 3k to something sometimes. I am at all. I think it's something with Blaze. I actually don't know what this thing's giving power to. Sometimes it gives power to itself. Sometimes it doesn't give power to itself. I don't know what this thing's actually giving power to. All I know is that it's CB1 and retires and sometimes gives power. So pretty good there. But yeah, this is definitely your new Blade Master to ride now. This old Blade Master GB2 was cool. It came up like 1 in like 20 games maybe. But this is a skill that will come up very often, and in the games where it does come up, it feels so good to just get a +1 at the end of every single turn. So yeah, this Blade Master, very, very, very good. This is definitely your new main ride now. Do keep in mind that most lists will realistically only play the 4 Cohens as your grade 3 Flame Dragon, so you do need to like draw one and discard it to get in a drop, or like drive check it and get in a drop, because DO is still obvious. I think still pretty obviously played, and then your 1-up slot can be either a 5th Flame Dragon Blaze, or it can just be the old Blade Master. So yeah, pretty good, very, very good card. Just gotta keep in mind that for this skill, you're basically only adding more copies of itself back to hand. But once you have 1 copy in circulation, you will always have that 1 copy in circulation. So yeah, pretty good here. And then some support. This dude Mabuti, I think. Mabuti, or Shakur and the Dungeon. So this guy unfortunately got nerfed into the ground. So it has Blaze, and then GB2, when a student attacks a Vanguard, if your Vanguard is a Blade Master and you were in Blazing, CB1, draw 1 and +2. So you read this and you go, oh, this skill isn't bad, right? Solo attacker, draw, yeah, solo attacker and a draw, pretty good, right? In the TCG, this card was 2k per empty rear, so this card hit like giant numbers. And because this card no longer hits for giant numbers, I think you still want to play copies of Radiant Dragon. Before, with this card, if this card kept its original skill where it got 2k per empty, I think you would just cut Radiant Dragon completely, because realistically you're only playing that card because it was a giant attacking beat stick that could scale by itself. And because he is no longer going to fill that role, he is just like a draw and a CB. And the worst part is the power is like locked behind the CB, so you can't just use it as a solo attacker. Because of that, I think this card is still pretty good, but I do think this card isn't like an auto 4 of inclusion in the deck, like some people might put it out as. But still a very good card, but definitely not as good as it could have been if they left it unnerfed. So yeah, still played, just not as good as it could have been. Shakur, Blaze, and then on play, if you have less rears than your opponent, CB1 retire anything, and then GB1 +2k if you're in Blaze. So it's a solo attacker with the upside of sometimes being able to retire. So I think like it's very simple effects, but still very worth talking about. I think this card is actually not like amazing by any stretch of the imagination. The retire skill actually is kind of awkward, just because sometimes your opponent has like a really low commit board to begin with. They don't want stuff getting retired. With this dude, sometimes you have like a booster, you play on the board, he has this 2, and then you just can't retire. There only has 2 cards on the board. So yeah, so the retire skill is just kind of there. Sometimes comes up, doesn't come too often, but just being a solo attacker and Kagero, in my opinion, is good enough to be worth mentioning, worth playing. So yeah. And then finally Dungeon. This is the new PG we got. So his skill is GB1. So it has Blaze, and then GB1. When you PG with this card, if you have another copy of him in the drop zone, and the difference in the power of that attack is 1500 or less, so basically, if that attack was within heal guard range, when you use this PG at the start of your turn, draw 1. So just reading this card, you think this card would be pretty good, right? Like a PG that can draw you 1 back seems pretty solid, but after some playing with it, I think this card is actually very whatever. For one, I think I actually value the extra CC more. Sometimes 1 CB mix can go a long way, because DO is still CB3 at the end of the day. But this draw just doesn't come too often, because when you're getting PG checked, chances are it's like a van swinging giant number at you, right? And that is usually over heal guard range. And this deck, I already think actually does occasionally run into deck out issues. There's just so many draw effects now. So this doesn't help with that. The times where you would want the draw is like in like super like low resource situations, and I don't think Kagero runs into that too often anymore. And if you're in a situation where you're getting like PG check that often anyways, yeah, so it just this card, like the draw just doesn't come up too often. I think the only situation where this would come up is against, like, for example, like Alt Mile, and they're like, they went second, they like railed your face in, you push it to 5, got like 2 checks in, you just didn't have Heal Guard in hand. You might draw like 1 back off of that, but overall I think this card is kind of whatever. It's like, it's there, and you could play it if you want, but out of this, the Old Blades PG, the Riaz, or the CCPG, I think this is probably the worst one out of the 3 in my opinion. But you're free to try this card if you think this card's skill will come up. I personally don't think it's very good after some testing. I thought this card would be amazing just after reading this card, but yeah. After actually trying and testing this card, I think the skill is very, very mid. But it's there as an option if you want to try it. And out of all relevance, I think that's everything for Kagero. Next, I'll go over Nuba's next. I've actually tried this deck. DI is the one deck, again, like I said, I have not tried yet. Nuba's got a few cool cards. There's actually the biggest segment here, or biggest chunk here, because they have the most amount of cards. Let's click over all the relevant cards. PG, PG, I never got a chance to play it. I don't have it yet, but I don't think this PG is very good, so I will not go over it. Really quick, this card scales every time something attacks, including stuff you dominate. So this card is a giant booster, very, very good. Definitely a 4 upgrade 1 in the deck right now. And this card has this is the old Shiranui. He has Shiranui name, but you ideally never want to be on this card. So we'll just skip over that. I think these are all the relevant cards. So GR wise, they got Mujin Tenbu. I think this card should, in my opinion, at the very least, be a 4 in your G zone. I think optimal, you want 4. I only have 2 right now. So I've only been testing with 2, and there have definitely been games where I wish I had an extra pair. So I think this is your main GR priority for Nubas. So skill CB1 G Persona Flip. To choose one of your opponent's rears, it gets +3 for every face card in your G zone. Stand and dominate that unit. So if you don't dominate, basically you borrow their unit and then you swing with it. Basically, is how it works. In the context of 0, with how intercepts work. Unless the card specifically says ignore intercepts, you have to swing to other intercepts first. So, for example, if your opponent has double intercepts as their only board and you use this skill, the thing you dominate has to swing into the other intercept before it can get to ban. And the same with anything in the back row, you cannot swing in the back row until you've cleared all their intercepts. If the thing you dominated is the only intercept, you can point at anywhere because there's nowhere, you can't have it attack itself. So yeah, that's how that would work. So stand and dominate the unit, and then attack something else with it. And then at the end of the battle, retire the unit you dominated. So you can. I think the easiest application for this is you dominate an intercept, you swing it into something, and then the intercept dies, and you can just go face 3 times after that. So yeah, very good card. And because it flips, that's actually very, very relevant for the other GRs. That one counts face-up copies. Face-up things in your G zone to do more attacks. So in this card, it dominates. It can scale the rear that it dominates. If it flips, it scales, and then it retires thing and dominates. So it's also board removal. So yeah, very, very good card. Definitely a 4 in my opinion. I think this is your main priority in this deck. If you want to play dominate, this is the main thing you want to get. Will it stay a 4 forever? Probably not. But if you want to play the deck now, I definitely think you want 4. Next up is the Mujin Lord. This card, its skill is crazy, but in my opinion, this card is like something you only will ever go up with your points at 5. If your points at 4, and you have a choice of between this or the Mujin Tenbu, I'd probably go Mujin Tenbu and push them back to 5, unless you just can't live for that turn, then you go for this. But yeah, Mujin Lord skill is CB1 G Persona Blast, and then choose one of your opponent's rears for every face-up card in your G zone. So hypothetically, you could technically get 5 with this, but realistically, this card will choose like 3, 4-ish, depending on what their board state is like. Stand those units, give them 4k, so for the most part, any 7k or higher will hit van if your opponent's at 5. Stand and dominate them, and then they swing at your opponent's van 1 by 1, and they all ignore intercepts. So you can just imagine how dumb this can be at opponents at 5 if. With how Shiranui overall works, unless you can underswing into something, one of their intercepts is probably gone when you use this. So on average, it's like 4 dominate swings to face. So if your opponent's at 5, before you even get to attack them, they get poked 4 times by all the rears. They get poked 4 times all at face, and then you can like try to get rid of the intercept with the bear and poke face 3 more times. So very lethal. And then yeah, so that was the effect. So for every CB1 G flip, for every face up card you have in your G zone, choose one of your opponent's rears, give that unit 4k, dominate them, and then they all swing at Van one at a time, ignore intercept. So very lethal finisher. This card is very good for what it does. But because of the fact that the scaling can be whacked, you do have ways to scale your opponent's rears to like hit over defensive, or to hit the 16k threshold from 4. But if your opponent hits a defensive on that 5th damage, your Mujin Lord turn went from like 3-4 checks to like probably blanking all the dominated checks. So yeah, so because of that, this is something I would realistically never want to go at from 4, because I think it's a little too risky. Obviously, if you have like 2 pairs of this, you can like risk the first pair and then still like push them to 5 and try again the next turn. But I think this is a card where you can safely probably get away with 2 and just save it when your opponent's at 5 and never go into it when your opponent's at 4, given a choice. So yeah, very good. Next off is the main ride, the Shiranui Oboro. At the start of the ride phase, so if you want second, you cannot use this immediately because the start of the ride phase has passed. So at the start of the ride phase, you can choose 1 card from your opponent's drop zone and call it to an empty rear circle. So you can't call over anything, call it to an empty slot, and then at the end of the turn, retire that unit and any on-plus effects do not get activated. So basically, what this is used for is like something to dominate for that empty board. So very good. And then on stride, no cost. Keep that no cost. I don't know what made them think this was okay. I honestly think this is the dumbest thing about this deck, is that Shiranui's stride bonus is free. There's no cost tied to it at all. So on stride, choose one of your opponent's rears, stand and dominate it, give it +4, and then attack an opponent's rear with it. Our abilities do not activate. So and you can like, usually what you do, like you like dominate the thing you called off of its first skill and just swing into an intercept. And then Mujin Lord, you'd like dominate something else, probably like something in their back row or something, and then you just have it attack the other intercept, and then kill that card off, and then their board's empty now. So yeah, this is definitely, I think this card is very important for the deck. This is the thing you have to be on for you to win. And because of how good this card is, because of the stride bonus being free, I think this is like a very strong card. Very important for the deck, and you have to be on it. So yeah, that's it for the Oboro. And then the supports, despite this card only being doubler, I think this is like the next best thing if you don't have the Mujin Lord, so which it's not as good like at all, but I think it gets the job done for the most part. So this card's skill is at the beginning of the battle phase, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, dominate it, stand it, dominate it, and attack something with it. So the difference between this card and Mujin Lord is 1, it does not flip. 2, it doesn't retire the thing that it dominates, and because of that, I think this card is strictly worse Mujin Lord at the cost of it being free, which is like cool, I guess. But yeah, and something also important to note is that if you dominate an intercept and then it swings, and with this card specifically, if you gave it 4k, or if you had someone to give it power, you still have to actually kill the intercept. So try not to dominate one card too much and just be unable to hit into it. Sometimes could come up if you don't know what you're doing in this deck. So yeah, but this card, it's a very okay budget option. I play it because I don't have the 4 Mujin Lord. I think even if you had the 4 Mujin Lord, you'd still probably play a few copies of the card, just because I think having the option for a free dominate is pretty nice. So yeah, this card, although not as good as Mujin Lord, is a very solid budget replacement. And then next up we have the I think this is Fudai? No, this is Genkai. So Genkai's skill is GB1. When a unit you dominated attacks and you Vanguard Shiranui, CB1, Soul Blast 1, draw 1, it gets +2. This is not once per turn. So if you like, for example, if you had the CB open for it and you like used what's his face, Mujin Lord, you could hypothetically draw like 4 cards with this card. So pretty good there. This card is definitely like the best grade 2 in the deck, in my opinion. And then you have this is Fudai. So GB1 once per turn, Soul Blast 1, and then you can call a card from the drop to their board. Same thing as the Shiranui Oboro. It's pretty good. Again, your opponent has like empty board, you can use this to call out more stuff to dominate. And then GB1 during your turn, when any unit attacks, if you're running a Shiranui, +2. So the stuff you dominated can gets he gets +2. When your own units attack, he gets +2. So this card can fill up your opponent's board to dominate, and then swings for big numbers. So pretty good there. And that's it for, in my opinion, all the relevant like Shiranui support. Again, like the grade 1 I said, giant booster, PG's kind of whatever. And then old cards you'd play include Bear. Basically, that's it. The Tamahagane, as I can remove intercept to get more check face. So yeah, pretty good in that deck. And that's it for Nubas. The two triple shreds are like okay. They're not anything special. I'm not gonna go over. Like, I don't think they're very good. But some situations and they can come up. I think they have both hand rip. This one gets a crit for what that's worth, but not worth going over in my opinion. And finally, we have Dark Regulars. This is the clan I care the least about, and the clan that I have the least cards for. I think the only real relevant cards is like the Sharheart and the Stride. I'll just quickly glance over them. Sharheart, like I want to look at this to be honest. I think he like on Stride you like soul charge and you retire on the thing with the priority back row, and then he can recycle 3 cards from drop. And you can like CC2. This card's like pretty good. Definitely your new best ride, your new main ride target in this deck, the new Sharheart. And then the GR is the Blader Mouse, so he restands, he shuffles triggers back into the deck. That's cool, I guess. DI is still DI, so I think the deck still has like giant glaring issues everywhere. Don't expect this deck to be very good. Yeah, I'm not gonna go over this. If you want to read this, you can come here and read it. But something like put card from hand to soul, it restands, gets a crit on the restand, puts triggers back. So it's cool, I guess. Nothing I'd want to play myself, but it's there. So yeah. So final impressions, I think blasters are very good. I think Nubas are actually really good too. I think Kagura got great support. DI is still in the bin where it belongs. So yeah. So that's it for this first impression for this month. Tell me you guys are excited about any of this stuff. If you're a global player, if you're a JV player, tell me what you guys think about this set and what your favorite deck from the set is. And like, subscribe, all the good stuff. See you guys next time. Peace out.